You've got a smartphone and maybe even a smart fridge, but how nice would it be to enjoy smart conversations with yourself and the people you love? Our special guest today is Patti Reed, author of the devotional book, Face to Face, Smart Conversations with Yourself, Your Teenager, and Your Young Adult. Patti, welcome to Spirit 105.3. It's a joy to have you.
Thank you for giving me this opportunity to share.
Sure.
Patti, right off the bat here, what is conversational intelligence?
So conversational intelligence is a body of work that helps us understand what conversations open up the brain for trust and what conversations close them down.
Wow, boy, do we need that.
We do.
So what is the best way to build a bridge with words from us to our kids, conversationally speaking?
Yeah, so there's many things that go into that. And you know as well as I do that the basis for any relationship is trust. And so that's really the foundation of where we need to begin. I like to tell people that we prep the conversation, okay? Especially if there's issues and they're not talking, or you might have had a disagreement or whatever, but we really need to prep the conversation. And I always encourage people, obviously we're going to pray. We're going to ask the Father, going into this conversation, should I have the conversation? When should I have the conversation? What should I say? What should I not say? Is this a good time? All of that. So there's a prep that goes in, before that. It's pausing, slowing down to figure out, when that right time is. And then also, I like to encourage people to, if it is an important conversation, let's pick a place where that person might really like. It might be the park. It might be a coffee shop. It might be a cute little tea room. It might be a pool hall. I don't know. Whatever it is that that person might enjoy, that's really setting the environment for them to feel comfortable in that space. And then I would say, again, asking the Father, what are those questions? And I like to encourage people to ask open-ended questions, do a lot more asking than talking, because we want to understand where they're coming from. And I'm speaking at a mother-daughter tea this weekend, and we need to do our best to try to understand other people, because basically we don't see the world as it is. We see it as we are. So we run everything through our filter, our experiences, and so that's going to skew things. So that's why we do our best to really hone in on what do they mean when they say that word or they're expressing that thought, so that we can really understand where they're coming from, because we're going to understand from our perspective, not necessarily theirs.
How do we help our kids find out what God's purpose is for them?
Well, I sometimes think that parents would like their kids to live their dreams.
Yep.
And so I kind of get on my soapbox a little bit about this. And I would basically say to them to open the conversation, asking different types of questions. And that is, if you could do anything in the world, if you had all the resources, all the time, all the money, everything, what would you do? And you might be surprised at what you hear, because I do believe that our children do want to please us and honor us, but I also think that we might squelch some of their passions because it might not look good.
Yeah.
to the family, right? It might not, like, oh my gosh, what do you mean you don't want to go to college? Or what do you mean you want to go to trade school? Or you want to take a year off? Or you want to go to the mission field? I mean, we do have dreams for our kids, and my husband and I had to lay down some of our own dreams so that our children could be who God called them to be.
Wow. I think that's really powerful. Patti, let's just say somebody is in the middle of a bumpy journey with their teen or their young adult right now. Can you give them some hope today? Maybe just something practical that they can do in the middle of this thing?
Yeah, and what comes to mind in that situation is, if there's bumpiness, if there's tension, conflict in the relationship, what I like to encourage parents to do, because I do like to say that we are the adults in the room, and we do get the honor and the privilege of leading our children, and one of those aspects of leadership is called humility. And so there are going to be times where they're going to make you crazy and you want to hang them from the ceiling fan. I mean, of course, I've never felt that way. No.
Of course not.
No, never. But I know that humility, to me, humility and vulnerability is the pathway to the beginning and to trust And I know that that has worked in my own relationships with my children. I have a 22-year-old daughter who lives in New York, and I have a 27-year-old son who is in real estate here in Dallas. And they've given me lots of lessons. So I've gotten to try out all this stuff and, see what works and doesn't work. And humility usually wins every time.
That's so good.
Another thing you write about is having a smart conversation with yourself. What is that like?
Yeah.
How does that work?
Yeah, I chose the SMART thing just because to me that's kind of all around the neuroscience type thing is really what that comes down to is we have to sit with ourselves as we sit with God and we navigate life and relationships and conversations. We have to ask ourselves hard questions. One of the things that I write about is what adjustments do I need to make in the conversation so that we can move forward? Because, it's easy to blame. I mean, it goes back to the garden. Adam said, she made me do it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And that's natural, and we're human beings, and we do that. But I think it needs to begin there.
I read once, it said, talk to yourself like you would someone you love. And I am always shocked, Patti, at how often I talk so negatively to myself. Like, oh, you dummy, you made that mistake again. What? And how do you stop that? How do you just put up the stop sign and say, no, I'm going to talk to myself in a loving way?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's a really good question. That negative bias, so to speak, it is part of our sin nature. And that's why God says, do not be conformed to the world, but be transformed by the renewing of your mind. Think on what is good and lovely and pure and all those things. And it's funny, as I have studied this material, the Bible obviously has come to even life more because seeing why he says these things. Because behind thinking on these things and transforming your mind is first the chemical reactions that happen in your body as a result of negative thoughts, will not put you in a good space. Whereas when you're thinking on those things that are good and lovely and pure, and you're working on transforming your mind, you're in a better state. And I would say that if you have that thought, catch yourself, write it down, and then I would encourage you to replace that thought, write it down like, okay, next time this thought comes up, this is what I'm going to say instead.
Yes.
I mean, it is an intentional practice to change our thinking.
Oh, it's just wonderful. Patti Reed, author of the book, Face-to-Face, Smart Conversations with Yourself, Your Teenager, and Your Young Adult. You are wonderful. Write that down.
Thank you. I will.
Thank you for being with us, dear.